All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. We are this on episode, I think, 6 of our series talking about sales kickoffs. We've had some really amazing discussions, really great guests coming in and sharing their expertise. And today is absolutely no different. We're so excited to have Melissa Madian join us. Melissa has been working and is a recovering engineer, I believe, if I saw correctly, came over to the dark side in sales and sales enablement and has been consulting in this space for a long, long time. I'm sure she has probably forgotten more than what I'll ever learn in my life about this world. So I'm incredibly excited to have you on and for all of us to be able to learn from you. Thank you so much.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
And let's go ahead and jump in. For those who have joined in previous ones, we make these short and quick. The goal is to try to make it as fun, back and forth engagement discussion as possible, get something useful, and then everybody's busy, so move on with our day. One of the things I would love in just doing the prep with Melissa, you don't get a whole lot of opportunities. All of us have experienced virtual over the last year and a half because we've had to, right? We've been forced into it. We've had to figure it out. Some things have gone well, some things haven't. You have had the opportunity that you were doing virtual and hybrid before any of us were having to. So the amount of learning you have and being able to apply it, would love to just hear a little bit about your experience with it. What was driving it pre-pandemic, and then how things in your mind have really changed over the last year.
Yeah, so it's interesting because what drove the reason why we did it, and this was probably back in 2009-ish. And if I don't know if anyone on the call remembers what the economic climate was in 2009-ish, but it wasn't great. So I was working at a small-ish startup, but we had a good amount of folks located in European regions and in Asia Pacific regions. And we were doing our mid-year kickoff. We basically had 2 kickoffs in a year, so the beginning of the year and then mid-year. And our chief revenue officer was like, with the economics the way it is, it's probably not a great idea to spend money flying everybody into one location. So he's like, figure out how to have something in person for everybody who's physically located here in Toronto. I'm based in Toronto, Canada, here in Toronto, and then it'll be virtual for everybody else. I'm like, okay, that's a bit of an interesting conundrum because everybody's in different time zones. So first it was finding the right platform that could match. And of course, at that time, not a lot of virtual platforms. So we kind of had to use a webinar platform. And then fitting all those pieces together to make it work for all of the attendees that we had so that everybody was included and wasn't like, oh, those guys in APAC are an afterthought. And so, yeah, so it was a really fun exercise. And it's so funny that now fast forward to 2020 and it's like, oh yeah, virtual, I got this on lock. It's fine, I've done this before.
Well, I mean, the interesting thing is like what you just said is it wasn't even virtual, it was hybrid. And this is actually what a lot of people are now walking into. Or last year, everybody was virtual. How do we do this with everybody sitting in their bedrooms, in their offices, in their dining rooms, out on a patio, and a coffee shop, wherever it was that they were. And then this year it is different, where it's like, okay, now we have chunks of people that can get together depending on what restrictions are, or just the comfort level of people, some others who are going to be experiencing this virtual. How did you attack that in a way that the biggest risk we have talked to people about is if you don't think about it so much up front, you have the opportunity to create 2 or 3 times as much work to run virtual as what you would have if it was purely in person or purely virtual or in a hybrid model, and you can alienate certain groups of your employees. And you said you were thinking about that from day one. How did you even approach that of how do you make the experience equal for everybody?
Yeah, so the interesting thing, whether it's entirely in person, entirely virtual, or entirely hybrid, or I guess hybrid, you always have to think about the attendees. And this is true of kickoffs, this is true of marketing, like external facing events. To me, it's true of a party. I like to throw a good party. And so you're always thinking about what is the experience going to be for your attendees to this event? And that starts with, well, why are we bringing these people together in the first place? Like, what's the function of this event? And I think a lot of organizations forget that just because, sort of traditionally you have some sort of kickoff event, they forget what's the purpose of it. And based on what the purpose is, then it's like, okay, what do you want the attendees to get out of this event? What do you expect them to come into the event either knowing and then doing? And how do you want the experience to be? And then once you have that determined, then you can start to decide, okay, should this be an in-person event? Because I think, again, a lot of the tendency is, well, we'll just bring everybody together and it'll, be fun and lots of cocktails and everybody loves to collaborate, yada, yada, yada. But then you miss the purpose, the end point. It's like, if you just wanted to bring them all together, that's a really expensive party that you're having without any kind of purpose. With virtual events, same thing, especially since we're all getting a little fatigued with virtual. It's like, why are you bringing everybody together? But with hybrid, it's so much more important to determine, why are you bringing everybody together? Because if you don't know that clear purpose, then it's going to be really hard to design an event that is geared towards the people that are physically in the room and the people that are joining virtually, especially if you're crossing time zones. Because then the folks that are stuck in a time zone that is not great for a North American time zone, if it's entirely focused on North American time zone, you're going to have people that are either staying up way too late or waking up way too early and just not enjoying the experience before they even step into your virtual room. So just knowing the purpose and then figuring out, all right, since I know the purpose, now I can create a plan that's conducive to everybody who is joining, whether they are joining in person or whether they are joining virtually.
Yeah, so I'd love to click down on the purpose specifically. So the other thing that we have seen is when you let what you're trying, so when the medium isn't exactly what people were comfortable with, I can stand on stage, I can see everybody in the audience, and I know everybody's paying attention to me. Okay, our purpose, what do we really have to do? We just have to get our message across, right? Well, so we've got a corporate message, we've got main stage presentations, we just need to make sure that people can watch it. I've even had some people refer to these as have-to events. Saying like, oh, for external customers, we need our customers to want to. For employees, they have to be able to sit there. So we got to be able to show it. How do you help coach your clients around what their purpose is and thinking larger than just sitting and watching presentations?
Yeah, so if you are engaging me to run your event, which I do, I have shameless plug, I have a kickoff in a box package that basically helps you run an entire kickoff event and gets you to think about these things. But my cut, again, it's, why are you having this event? And if you're using me, I'm going to tell you right out of the gate, if your whole cut at it is, well, these departments need to be paraded in front of the organization and deliver their messaging and they got to sit there and listen because it's required, I'm going to be like, no, it's just no, just all sorts of no, because that, why are you bringing all of these people together to parade a bunch of talking heads at them? And yeah, maybe some of you executives and some of the marketing folks and some of the chief revenue officers are really dynamic and they're great speakers and everybody loves to hear from these people, but it's also just a talking head and there's no sense of what people really enjoy about these events, which is the collaborative aspect. And like, hands down, across all the events I've ever run, the two most popular things that occur in a kickoff or a mid-year or whatever kind of event you're running, collaboration and networking, and usually customer stories, typically customer stories, especially if a customer is speaking. So if those are the two most popular things, collaboration, networking, and stories, why are you parading a bunch of talking heads in front of your organization? So record those things, have them available, and maybe have that as pre-work for people. And then when you actually physically bring people into a room, you are 100% focused on that collaborative networking aspect of it, where people can actually share stories and learn from one another and take advantage of the fact that they're all in person. And that is even more important if you're running either a hybrid or a virtual event, because the amount of time we want to sit and stare at our screen is so tiny that if you make it collaborative, then the person who is sitting in their home office in London trying to join at 7 o'clock at night because it's a North American run event, then at least they're like, this is worth my time sitting here, versus, oh my God, I got to listen to whatever CEO, just sit there and talk for 50 minutes. And now I'm ready to go like throw myself into the river.
And even, I mean, it's exactly right. And all the ones that we've ran consistently, the #1 rated sessions are, and they're called different things by different customers, but some of them call them storytelling sessions, some of them call them deal rooms, but essentially they're all really the same. There's sections they put into the agenda, and there are a series of rooms that people can jump into, and it's a peer and maybe a customer in the room just telling a story. It could have been a story around landing a new prospect. How did the prospect learn about you? What was the problem they were trying to solve? How did you convince them that you were the right person to solve that problem? It could be a lost prospect. Let's talk about things that didn't go well. It could be an implementation of a new customer. It could be upsell during a renewal time, or just getting a renewal of a customer who is struggling, and just hearing those real stories from peers, ability to ask questions live, and the ability to, if they jump into one and it isn't exactly what they were wanting, to be able to hop to another one, right? And giving some sense of choice. You could have 2 going at once, you could have 9 going at once, but some user attendee choice and interaction directly with peers. And the difference in rating of those sessions versus the general main stage sessions, it is night and day. So if you sprinkle those in the right way, it's incredible.
Yeah. And really, like, the only time the main stage ones are usually really engaging is if the presenter is really engaging. So, you know, I've seen some guest speakers that come in, and maybe the company has purchased, you know, this guest speaker, really motivational, whatever. And that person might be on stage, on the main stage, whether it's virtual or physically in person, for like 45 minutes. But if they're really engaging, then maybe because you're and the commonality amongst all those folks is that it's usually they're telling a really good story, or they're telling a good set of stories that are not necessarily about the products or the services that you're trying to position in your organization. It's just sort of thematically, it's a really good experience. So like you're spend so much money bringing people together, make it worth their while, whether it's virtual or in person, make it worth their while so that they really feel like that was a worthwhile experience, instead of another, like, oh, great, another talking head that we could have just had a webinar and this would have been fine.
I mean, I don't know who in the in-person world, and back in so many kickoffs that I've been a part of, I've been part of some really, really good ones too. But the ones that you show up to, and on day one, there's like a half joke on the stage, like, hope you're all ready for the fire hose. We're getting ready to point at you, just information down your throat. Oh, by the way, and then you're hung over for 2/3 of it. So whoever thought it was a good idea to spend millions of dollars bringing people together to get them hung over and shoot them with a fire hose, I'm not real sure how that all happened, but
no, and it still happens. We're in 2021 and it's still happening. It's like, oh my gosh, if you were going to spend $1 million to fire hose people, you should give me the $1 million and I will run a great event for you and have some change to pocket, like, because it's just insanity. And it even becomes, again, it's so much more important if you're running a hybrid event, because your hybrid event, where if you're all in person together and you're running it from 9 to 5, let's say, I mean, people are physically in person, but at least they can walk away and take breaks and stuff like that. You're running a hybrid event across time zones, the time that you have suddenly shrinks down to only really a few hours. You can't go 9 to 5, you can't go a full 8-hour day. You have to go to like a 3-hour day or a 4-hour day or 2-hour day, depending upon your time zones. And then you have to get really focused, and you cannot fire hose people in that kind of setting, because just people are just going to turn off, tune out, and completely, or they'll turn their camera off and go do a bunch of things and then come back when they know that something important is going to happen.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. So I'd love to ask you a question. So a lot of the people who we engage with are people who are at a director level, a manager level, and they really believe all of these things that we're talking about. They're bought in, they understand, they're really tied in with individual sales reps, client success people. They know what they need. They then have to take that and run that up the chain to get executive buy-in, who have a core message from top down that they want to drive. If you find, what would advice you give to people in that situation on how do they take everything we're talking about now and package it in a way to sell up and manage up within their organization?
Yeah. If It's the purpose. So if you can really get a clear purpose and the experience down for what the attendees, what the intent is for the attendees, then what you can sell up is that vision. Like, think about it, Ms. CMO or Ms. Chief Revenue Officer. Think about all of your attendees having this wonderful experience where they're like engaged and they're excited, and sell all on the vision. And then on the fact that, and if you get a little pushback, well, we need to get this message across, I always challenge back with, could this be something that our new hires would want to watch? And if the answer is yes, then say, okay, then let's record you in advance and get that message across, and we'll distribute it to the team in advance of the session so they can watch it, so that when they physically come in person, we're actually doing more collaborative and engaging things. So the general default is, could this be recorded and could a new hire consume it? If the answer is yes, that means that you should do it, because then you can take advantage of it later on. But also it means that it's really not important to bring people together to have that person deliver that message. And that's sometimes because a lot of executives really like to get in front of their audiences and talk about stuff. I usually say, you get that, then budget like a certain amount of time, say 30 minutes, either for an executive to get up at the beginning, kind of set the stage, and or I'm a big fan of quote unquote fireside chats with your executives, which is like, oh, you want to get in front of our audience? Yes, absolutely, executives. We would love to have you get in front of our team. Let's have an informal fireside chat conversation where, they can ask you questions. Fireside chats are a lot shorter, so it doesn't take up a lot of your agenda. And there's no talking head. It's a little bit more informal, relaxed. Maybe you get 2 or 3 of them, in some comfy chairs on the stage having a conversation. And then there's no fire hose. Then it's just an informal chat. Oh, the team loves hearing informal chats from the executive team. Don't you want to have them feel like you're all part of the same conversation? So it's a lot of ego stroking, but it gets around some of the pushback that you all might get.
Yeah, I mean, even if you can take those and drive them down to smaller groups as well, because we've run some who say, hey, part of our kickoff is we do the company kickoff, we do some education, we do some certification stuff, but then we want people to get down into individual teams, to say a team of 10 people who are a new business southeast team with their marketing partners and their solutions consultants partners coming together, doing their own kickoff about what to do, which those have been super powerful to give executives. Planning those all in one time, give an opportunity for the executive team to hop into those situations and do a true fireside chat. They're answering real meaningful questions with teams of 10 or 15 people or 20, and you really gets powerful at that point in time. So we're running up towards time. There's one question that came across, and it's actually something I know we talked briefly about in just the prep right before this. Is we've talked a lot now about kickoffs, and we're in kickoff season, and that's super, super important. I am incredibly excited about, even with your drumbeat around purpose and thinking through the purpose, we've seen that start to bleed into other things that have always been a bit of afterthoughts anyway. Those can be things like onboarding, things about how QBRs work within an organization. If a kickoff doesn't have to be in person and we can do it for $100,000 instead of $5 million, is that something we should be doing quarterly, and what do those look like? So what I'd love to just ask, and a question came up, how do you apply, or how do you work through the same type of thinking for helping organizations think through all their interactions that could happen virtual or in person?
Yeah, to me, it's purpose. Like you said, it's if you don't know the reason why you are constructing an event or a training package, or how the onboarding flows for new employees, if there's no purpose, if there's no clear understanding of why are you doing this, and are you just doing it because that's the way you've always done it, then I would ask yourself to take a step back and go, okay, why are we actually doing this? And is there a way we could do this better? And if I am going to bring everybody together for a QBR, is it really effective to have everybody sitting in a room and watching every single person's presentation over the course of 10 hours? Is that really the most effective use of everybody's time? Or can we reimagine this and redesign it so that it has a clear purpose and it has a clear flow that everybody can take advantage of, bringing everybody together? Like, one of the biggest complaints I hear is, oh, it's a lot of money to bring everybody to take everybody out of the field, to bring everybody together and take them out of the field, especially for salespeople. It's like, you're right. It is a lot of money to bring everybody to take them out of the field. So why are you doing it? Yeah. And I think a lot of people just don't realize, well, that's the way we've always done it. And that's not an acceptable answer. It's really not. There's a better way to do it. And you should really think about, why am I doing it? And if you know the why and you know the purpose, then it's a lot easier to design something that's going to be effective for all the people involved, managers, as well as the salespeople, as well as attendees, as well as departments that are joining in on the conversation. If everybody knows the why and everybody knows the purpose, really easy to design a good event.
I love this, and this has been so incredibly helpful. I mean, so many organizations start with the, what are we going to do? And then who are we going to do it for, and where is it going to happen? They don't even get to the purpose. And what I was just writing down was flipping that on its head, starting out with, why are we doing what we're doing? What's the purpose? Then who is it for? Where does it make the most sense to do that? Maybe that's purely in person. Maybe that is virtual. Maybe that is a form in the middle. And then finally using those two to try to drive, okay, what are we actually doing? How is it going to be structured, and what are we going to do? Melissa, thank you so much for the time. I really, really enjoyed the discussion. For anybody out there who are thinking through their kickoffs and how it works, reach out to Melissa, talk to her about her Kickoff in a Box. Again, she's done this for so long, and I've learned a whole lot. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It was my pleasure to be here.
All right.